Good morning all, it's Ben here at Glide and been working on something interesting this week for a customer, so figured that I would record that. I'm sure it's something that many of you would find useful. The challenge this week was, how can we have a client that exists in Glide and send to them a form so they can fill out some of their data and have that automatically be updated in Glide. Being a bit more precise on the details here, this situation involved the system called JotForm. So I'm going to use that in my example. But, if we think a bit more about the challenge here, what is that form? Well, basically, you're going to send a customer an email, no doubt with lots of bits and bobs in them, and one of those bits is going to be something that says, hey, please visit this form link and help us by filling out some details. So it's basically just a web address, right? And the customer, any customer of yours, is going to load that up and fill it in. And the challenge really here is that when that form software, JotForm, records that submission, it has absolutely no idea who that person is. So how do we get it to update Glide automatically? As with a lot of things, there are a number of different answers to that. I've come up with a solution that I think hopefully works well. What we're going to do, for anyone that's sort of looked at this before, the answer almost always is that on that link we send to the customer, we're going to include a value which identifies them. And most form software has the ability to accept values being passed in the web address, which they can then pass back to you. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to go for that approach. And the question really then boils down to, well, what bit of information are we going to pass? Now, I do not like situations where we pass, let's say the Glide client ID is 167. I don't like the idea of having the number 167 in the URL because, it's pretty easy for a customer to just, not that you'd imagine most people would do this on purpose, but what if they change it to 168? We're going to encrypt that value so that it just looks like a load of weird letters and numbers. And I'm sure if you're like me, you've clicked on lots of links which do contain lots of gobbledygook values. And I think we all accept that if we muck around with them, we're going to break something somewhere. Step one here, we do this once and then we could use this forevermore on an eternal number of form situations, be they populating client data or job data, etc. And that is that we're going to create this encrypted version of our Glide client ID. I've gone for the client ID because it is immutable. You could do the client code, but then obviously if it changed, you would break it. In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate and populate that in Glide automatically the very second your client is created, which has the benefit of meaning that, if you get any clients in the future, they're going to have this field instantly and automatically. Of course, if you're implementing this tomorrow as an existing Glide customer with 10,000 customers, we need to backfill this for your existing clients. So I will do a video at a later point and hopefully link it to this one somehow, which shows you an easy way to do that. So let's dive straight in. I am using Make, which is a low-code automation tool, and I'm using the Glide app in there. If you favor Zapier, I'm sure you can do the same thing in there. Likewise, if you favor Microsoft Power Automate, then I'm sure the same functionality will be possible in there. And of course, if you are simply a software developer, you could do exactly the same using the Glide API. Okay, let's get started. We're going to go into Make and we're going to have a new scenario, and this is going to be a webhook. So we go for custom webhook. Let's go for add to create a new one. And I'm going to call this one new glide client. Yeah, IP restrictions, you could do that. I'm not gonna bother, just for the purpose of this demo video. So let's copy that address to clipboard. And if we jump into Glide, I'm gonna go config. Where am I looking? Configure webhook triggers, and I'm gonna put one on. Yeah, I'm gonna put a new one in on create client, which is that one there. So we've got that in there. If we go back here, it's going to want to run once. Okay, so it's now listening. So if we come back to Glide, I'm just going to create a new client. I'm going to create a company. No, I'm going to create a charity. I'm going to call it My Charity. Unique ID is going to be char003. I'm not going to worry about anything else. Here we are. Now, if I just click on it there, we can see that its Glide client ID is number 26. We're going to wait a second for that to come through. So Glide will process those webhooks every 60 seconds. So let's give that a few seconds. Yeah, hey, there we go. It's come through. Wonderful. Right, what we're going to do next is we're going to take that GID, Glide ID, and we're going to create our encrypted version of it. And for this, I'm going to use the inbuilt encryptor, the simple version. Of course, the advanced version offers more security features, and I believe the keys are managed more formally in the key management part there. Our Glide client ID is not in any way sensitive information. We're simply doing this to make the shared web address look a bit more like how our customers might expect it to look. So what we're going to do here, the data we're going to pull from there, Glide ID. And the secret key, this is something you would enter and remember. I'm simply going to type in, yeah, you wouldn't use such an obvious value, but I'm just going to type in the name of the company, Glide Practice Solutions. So let's click OK. I'm going to run that for my test data. It's going to want to know 26. When I do that, excuse me, 26. Okay, so it's done that. That's what it's output for me here. That is my encrypted data. And I'm going to now use Glide, the Glide Make app, populate a field. We do need a field, right? So what I'm going to do in a separate tab here is I'm going to add an additional client field. I'm just going to do a text long. I'm going to call it, what am I going to call this? Make form identifier. Okay, there we go. Make form identifier. And I'm just going to find that on the database. So it's field ID 738. Perfect. If we hit refresh here, we've got it there. Right, what we're doing back here then is we're going to do set update a client field by Glide client ID. Glide client ID is going to come from here. Custom client field ID I said about 2 seconds ago, I've forgotten already, it's 738. And what I'm going to paste into there is the value that we've got there. Okay, so I'm just going to run that once. When you're just running once, it asks you to type these in, which is a little bit annoying, but there we go. Okay, that's been run. So if we go back here, that's now in there. Right, okay, step 1 is absolutely complete. Hi, Future Ben here. Having completed the video, I realised I'd missed an important step, which I have now included. You won't see this in the rest of the video because I've only done it today, but let me explain what it is doing and how it works. It is taking the encrypted value and it is simply running the encode URL inbuilt make function on that value. The reason we are doing that is that I happen to notice that our encrypted values can include some characters such as the equals sign, which might have confused JotForm when we were showing that value. It didn't on the example in the video, and it possibly never would have done, but I just like my scenarios to be absolutely bulletproof, and this step is going to achieve that. So we simply pass the data from the encryptor through encode URL, and then I've also updated the glide step here to submit to glide the value from this step as opposed to that step. Of course, there is an equivalent adjustment on the next scenario, so you'll see future Ben again in a moment. Goodbye. So imagine that's happened when you've created your client, right? That's sat there, job done, don't need to think about that too much for now. So what do we do when we come to want people to fill in our form? Here is my form on JotForm. Now, of course, it's a pretty rubbish form. You probably have something elaborate with lots more fields. I have got, if we just have a look at this, I've got a field here called glide code. That's what we're going to send in. That's the value we've just generated. And crucially, I have within the options, within the advanced, I've hidden it. That means that my customer cannot mess around with it. And then I've simply got the date of birth here. Okay, so now we have everything set up. We have that sort of unique encrypted value that identifies our client. We have a form on JotForm. I have also got an incredibly simple workflow set up for this example. So that is called make JotForm example, and it simply has one stage and one step. And on that step, I have an email being sent to my customer. I've not gone into a lot of detail on how to do that in this video because that's covered in quite a lot of detail elsewhere. But what I do wish to do in some detail here is go and have a look at how we might set up the template. So here is my template, pre having the link in. So the internal name is sending our date of birth form request. The subject is please update your details. And again, a bit like with the form itself, I've just got a very simple email template here. So the bit we're missing is the link. Okay, so I want to show you how to do that. I'm going to do it in two ways. I'm going to hyperlink this text, and I'm also going to put the full link just here. So first of all, if we hyperlink this text, we need to type in the address, which is https://eu-. Now the EU bit is because my JotForm account is residing on their EU servers. I suspect yours might be too, but do check that if you can't get things to work. submit.jotform.com/, then you need to grab your form ID, which you can do by coming to the form editor, and it is simply that long number up there. So let's grab that. Then we need a question mark, and we need our hidden field name. I've called mine client ID. Now, if you're not sure what yours is called, just come onto that hidden field, click on properties, come across to the advanced. I think that would ordinarily open up on general, so come across to the advanced, and in the field details bit down here, you'll see the unique name. That will be generated automatically for you. I think I may have initially called this client ID and then changed it to glide code. So it will basically be what you have put in there minus any spaces or anything like that. So we've got, where are we up to on here? Client ID equals, And then what we need to do, okay, I'm just going to save that for a moment. We need to grab that field, that value, which is going to be in our client data dropdown. Okay, and it's going to be the bottom one in the summary section. There it is. So that is how we insert the special unique code that we created earlier. So I'm just going to cut that. I'm going to come back to edit this link, and I'm going to put that right at the end there. Okay, that all looks good to me. So if someone were to click on that, which I could simulate happening there, they would go to my form. Now, of course, when we are generating that email properly, we will exchange that for the actual value. If you wanted to type out the link in full, then of course you could do that as well. You could just have that there. So let's click save on that template. Now, we probably, in that workflow, we'd probably have some sort of traffic light to ensure that there is a value in that field. Again, that's sort of moving into the email automation side of things, so I'm not gonna pull that into this one here. Okay, so here we are back at my dummy charity client, which has the value we generated earlier. It has a job ready and raring to go on the Make JotForm example workflow system. And on my contacts tab, I have a linked contact with the onboarding. My email automation is targeting that tag, and this linked contact has an email address. So we are ready to go. Let's jump into this job. Let's click the button and let's wait and have a look at how that email is going to look and how it's going to present that link to our customers. Okay, so here we are in my Gmail account, and of course I didn't put too much effort into the template here. You might have a slightly more detailed from name and from address. Perhaps that would be coming from the person undertaking the job or the client manager or something like that. And you'd no doubt have a bit of formatting here and perhaps an email footer, but we've done enough to examine how the form is going to interact with this email. So we've basically got the same link here twice, okay? You don't need to do it twice. I'm going over and above there. This one is hyperlinked text, and this version we just typed it in plain text and Gmail has gone ahead and converted it into a link for me, which is rather helpful. So what do? Well, they click on it and that will open the form. Okay, it's as simple as that. And they can then complete that form. But before we start sending this out to anyone, we shall need to ensure we have a make scenario set up to listen for and capture those results and to populate the glide record with the date of birth. So let's go ahead and have a look at that now. Okay, we are back in Make and we're going to need another scenario. Let's go ahead and make a new scenario. This is going to begin at JotForm, if I can spell it properly. There we go. And we want to do watch for submissions. What that means is that when JotForm receives a submission, it will know to contact this scenario to tell us all about it. Okay, so we could give this a name like DOB form completed. I only have the one connection, so that's going to be fine. I don't have a team assigned, so that's fine. Choose the appropriate form and click save. Looks like it's happy with that. Now I think if we run that, yeah, it's listening out for a form submission, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a form submission. There we go. And in a moment or two, oh wow, that was quick. That one has come right through. And as you can see, they tell us lots of different things. And most importantly of all, hopefully someone in there will be our fields. Let's have a look where they go. Ah, there we go. Date of birth. Cool, wonderful. I like the look of that. Great. Now, okay, it's given us it as month, day and year. That's okay. We may just have to do a little text transform on there. Let's try and remember how we do that. Bom, bom, bom. I think compose a string is going to work. So this will be, let's just find it in here. It's going to be year, then it's going to be a dash, then it's going to be month, then it's going to be a dash, then it's going to be day. Okay. Oh, whoops, my mistake. You've got to be careful here. I must have accidentally clicked on date of birth rather than day. There we go. Let's try that again. 2024, October 23. Wonderful. Wonderful. So that step is just going to basically take the date that has been submitted and turn it into a nice format that Glide would expect. The next thing we need to do is get the encryptor back out, and we're going to do AES decrypt and obviously simple. Now, this is where we are decrypting that data, which will be in here somewhere. There it is, Glide code. Fantastic. So that was our hidden field. On our form, if we just go back to the form, yeah, we can't even see it on here, but it has been passed up there, okay? And then the form sends it onwards. So the data is going to be right there, Glide code. A little bit simpler, this one, because it's just a text field. It doesn't expand out or anything. And the secret key, this is where we have to remember the key that we made up earlier today. Obviously, you know, we mentioned how perhaps a normal key might not be so obvious, but we're just using this to mask what is fundamentally not a sensitive bit of information. Okay, there we go. Now we're gonna need to just get some more test data in. Let's just run that module only. So that's listening. So let's just give it a bit more information. Let's go for the 11th of June. Okie doke, cool. Once again, it comes in nice and quickly. And as before, all of the stuff that we're interested in is right here. There's our Glide code. There's our date of birth. So if I go ahead and just run this module once, whoops, it's a right click, by the way, to access this menu, and a left click for that one. Run this module. It's just going to want my Glide code. Okay, and here's output 26. And if we jump back to our My Charity, we can see we've got the correct value. So, final step is that we want to populate that date of birth field. So for that, we're going to need Glide, and we're going to do set update a client field by Glide client ID. I'm going to check I'm on the correct connection there. You would most probably just have one, so you wouldn't have to worry about choosing that. The Glide client ID comes from our encryptor. There it is. The Glide client field ID, for that we just need to jump into Glide and go to database code summary. Oh, we haven't even got a date of birth, so let's just quickly make one. It's obviously going to be a date field. Call it DOB. In reality, it might only be visible on individuals, but I'm going to give my charity a date of birth. There we go. Database code summary. So that is 742. So that's the same always. So you just type that in. And value. This is the output of our text compose string. So, you know, the JotForm submission gave us the date of birth, then we put it into the format that we particularly want it to be in. So if we go to run that module once, just as a test, what it'll ask us is two things. The encryptor, that was giving us 26, and with 2024, I think I went for June the 11th. We've run that one. So if we look back now, this client should have a date of birth. There we go. Hi, it's Future Ben again, and I'm showing you the tweak I made the day after making the video for the same reason as we mentioned earlier on in the video. We made a revision so that we were sharing with JotForm a value that was guaranteed to be safe in the URL. So in addition to the tools composer string that was putting our date of birth into a nice format, I've now introduced another tools composer string which is running the decode URL function on the Glide code. If you can just type that in, but also you can find those things up here. It's one of the text ones and you can just click on it just there, or you can type it in, whichever you prefer. The additional change necessary is that the decryptor then accepts the value from that step 5, whereas previously it was accepting the value directly from JotForm. And there is no change in this case to the Glide step because it is still submitting our date of birth. For the remainder of the video you won't see this bit, but I would recommend having that step in. Thank you, goodbye. What I'm going to do now is try and give us a example that runs from the start to the end. I'm going to give this one a name. So this is DOB form submitted and written to Glide. Try DOB. Of course, we are doing the simplest possible option here. You might have a form with 20 fields in, and of course you could populate them all, or you could do other things in here at the same time. In Glide, we're going to block the clicking of that blue button and thus the sending of the message unless there is a value in our special field. So there's no risk of that being empty, but of course you can always, this does allow for you to do sort of conditional logic, error handling. We're not going to dip into any of that today. How do we activate this? Is that activated? I can't remember. Let's save changes. On. There we go. We turn it on. That just turning it on simply means it is listening for submissions on the form. And that one needs turning on as well. So we've now got switched on something that's listening for new Glide clients being created, and it's doing the encrypted value. In theory, when you create your Glide client, we know that Glide triggers those webhooks within 60 seconds, so it should have a value. So as long as you don't trigger this job within 60 seconds, this is going to work perfectly. And of course, what I was recommending was that in that job, you literally block it if that value isn't populated, so it's not going to go wrong. So let's go ahead and do an example all the way through. So I'm going to go and create another client. I'm going to have a pension scheme, this time called My Pension Scheme. There we go. I'm not going to worry about too much else. So yeah, within about 60 seconds we should see a value coming in there. In the meantime, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to add a contact here. I'm just for simplicity going to create a brand new one. There we go. I'm going to stick that tag that I'm targeting. I'm going to give Mr. Ben Norwell to an email address. Okay. The scenario has run and this has its own special value now, but it has no date of birth. Oh no, what should we do? Right, let's make a job on here. Of course, you could have had this job be created automatically when you create a new customer. That's absolutely possible as well. Let's jump in here. Let's trigger the sending of the message, and much like the webhooks, Glide will send those messages every 60 seconds. So I'm going to jump over to my Gmail. Okay, it's in. we have the email, and as a helpful customer that we are, we're going to go ahead and fill this information in. So let's say that we are okay, you can. I was just wondering if you can go back many years at a time. Okay, so I am merely 24 years old. What you'll find in JotForm, by the way, and I will post a little note. I'm certain you better change the date format there to present it in a UK format. I didn't realise it was doing that earlier on. Yeah, we've submitted it. So what do we know now? Well, JotForm has received that submission. It is aware that we have registered a webhook, so it is now contacting that URL within Make. Make will run the scenario. It is going to do, what is it doing? It's doing the converting the date to the format Glide wants, decrypting the Glide client ID, and sending that all onwards to Glide. So when we go back to my pension scheme, there we are. I was just looking at that thinking that's not my date of birth, but obviously I made it up. So yeah, wonderful. It has worked. So I'm delighted that that has worked. Hope you found the video helpful. Fantastic. Thank you very much for watching, and good luck with all of your automation.